And as I stood there and was thinking through this, they were talking and talking, and I said, let me say something here. If you don't agree with that plan, don't leave the tent. Dave, let's debrief. There was disagreements amongst the leadership at the Battle of Gettysburg, and there are often disagreements in the way that we get things done. We hear a lot. And this is a quote. Actually, Leif quoted me during one of these debriefs that one of the things that I used to say was, look, Dave, if you and I'm the boss, or no, you're the boss, and we're in there having an argument about how to do an operation, and finally you say, listen, Jocko, we're doing it my way. So get on board and go start planning your execution. This is what I used to tell the young SEALs. When you walk out of that room, you execute that mission as if it was your own. Okay? And Leif quoted me on that, which is a legitimate quote. Here's the thing. And again, this is all from Leadership Strategy and Tactics, so it's not even like it's that big of a deal. But so they talk about, there's two generals, General Lee and General Longstreet. General Lee was, General Lee, and General Longstreet was one of his immediate subordinates, who he called his warhorse, meaning they had a good relationship. General Longstreet did not want to execute what General Lee's plan was. And so what Leif said was, listen, so what he did was when he walked out of the tent with the plan, General Lee said, listen to what we're doing. General Longstreet walked out of the tent, and then he waited and hesitated and waited 4 or 5 hours and didn't execute. And they had to send a bunch of people like, hey, what's going on? Are you going to do this? And finally he did it, dragging his feet the whole time. And Leif was like, hey, this is why when you leave, you execute it as your own, right? And then I forget who asked a question, or we had, one of the clients, and as I stood there and was thinking through this, they were talking and talking, and I said, let me say something here. If you don't agree with that plan, don't leave the tent. You don't leave the tent. Look, Dave, if you have a plan that's so good and you can't convince me of it, we got a problem, bro. Yeah. Especially once I've removed my ego, once I've detached from my emotions, once I've seen your perspective, I've done the right things over here to try and you still can't get me there. We got a real freaking problem. And that means I'm not leaving the tent. I am not leaving the tent. Now, that's the goal. Now, look, once you get beyond that, there's a bunch of different ways we can go there. We can go to Leadership Strategy and Tactics where, hey, if you say, hey, Jocko, shut up and do it. Now what do I do? I can say, you can fire me. I give up all my influence. You'll bring in a yes man. Look, these are all spelled out in Leadership Strategy and Tactics. I can say, okay, boss, I got it. I'll do the best I can. I go out, I do the best I can, and I mitigate risk as much as possible. Try and take care of my team. Try and execute the plan, but maybe, like I said, mitigate risk. The stories in Vietnam where SEALs a few times got ordered to do things that they did not think was good missions. And so they said, you know what? Yeah, okay, cool. We don't want to do that, boss. And then boss says, no, shut up and do it. The guys go, okay, cool. They walk outside the wire. They go 100 meters into the jungle. They set up a perimeter. They sit there for the night. They come back. Hey, we didn't run into anything. Yeah. Same thing with Dick Winters in Band of Brothers. Oh, you want us to do another one of those reconnaissances where we just lost a guy last night and the war is going to be over in any day now? Yep. Okay, got it. Oh, no, I don't think it's a good idea. No, shut up and do it. Okay, got it, boss. Go down the cellar and drink wine. So that's a whole nother thing. But all those subsequent decisions are based on the primary thing, which is don't leave the tent until you've got to a point where you've completely exorcised all the demons of the conversation, because the chances that you and I on the same team, working for the same company with the same goals, which we want to make money, we want to support our clients, we want all these things, or we're at war, we want to kill the bad guys, we want to take our objectives. You and I are aligned. At some level, we have to be aligned. And if we can't come to a conclusion about what is the right thing to do, I'm not going to leave the tent. That's the first part of it. If you leave the tent, you better figure out which one of those courses of actions you're going to take. I'm going to do this thing to the best of my ability. I'm going to mitigate the risk as much as I can. Like, there's a bunch of things that happen, but it starts with, if we don't agree, I'm not leaving the tent.
I wrote down, as you started this, I just wrote down in my little margin, I wrote down ego. Because I'm thinking, I'm putting myself in that situation. So I'm Longstreet, you're Lee. We're in the tent. We're doing this thing, and we've been doing this thing. Actually, you and I have been doing this thing at Echelon Front for about as long as they probably were. You know, I got 3 or 4 years under my belt here. So now I'm in a situation. Jocko gives me the big picture brief. I'm sitting there, I'm like, that seems wrong. So already right away, that's a very low probability. I'm not saying it's not possible, but like, that's immediate red flag. When I wrote down ego, I was thinking to myself is, before I leave the tent, this isn't about me trying to convince you that your plan is wrong. It's like, for me, it's the opposite of, hey, Jocko, I'm still missing something. I'm not understanding this. And and it's not always, there's always that caveat, but the likely issue isn't that your plan is bad. It's that I'm missing something about what you want. And when I wrote down ego, it's, I'm not there to try to change your mind. I'm there to really figure out, what am I doing wrong? So I can't leave the tent until I actually get past what I don't understand. Now, there may be some times that I have to come up with a way to maneuver around what you're doing too. But the likelihood, if we are this aligned, and you kind of covered a lot of what I was going to say, which was, I mean, think about the situation here. This is you and I after 3.5 years with all the same goals, objectives, and all of a sudden, I can't get past what you're asking me to do. Okay, what's really going on here? And more than likely what's going on is, I've created an answer in my mind that's different than yours, and I want to dig in and get you to see it my way. I can't leave the tent until I actually understand what you're saying. And that to me is much more likely of a problem that it's me instead of you. And actually, if I take that approach and you see me take that approach, you're actually more likely to go, oh, hang on, you keep pushing back. Let me see if I really understand this myself. Anyway, that's just what I wrote down, as thinking of what's going to be the biggest problem for me in that tent. It's going to be me.
I have this goal when I'm in a disagreement with somebody, and this shocks people all the time. But when I disagree with Dave, my goal is to understand why Dave is right and I'm wrong.
It's not to win the argument.
It's not even not to win it's like, how am I wrong right now and how can Dave be right? My goal is to have Dave be right.
Yeah.
And if you go with that approach, it disarms your ego. My ego is factually disarmed because I'm trying to prove that you're right. And what that allows, it allows the actual problems that we're facing to rise to the surface so we can come up with a good solution. Being yourself, you have to use at least some level of caution because you might be a very nice person. You can err on the side of being too nice. You can err on the side of being too hard. What I recommend is